Okay, so this video we're going to test the charging system and show how to verify alternator output. So we got our meter hooked up here to our battery. Got 12 volts, which means that my battery is dead. And I should probably charge it before the cell sulfate and the battery is unrecoverable. But that's my problem. So we know we have battery voltage, which is low, simulating a bad alternator. So we look at our diagram here. We got a fuse box, we got a battery, we got the alternator, generator, whatever, however you want to look at it. We got some wires plugged into it. So the first thing we do here is we take a look at our alternator. So we got one wire here, and we got 4 wires that come off here. Okay, so this black with white stripe here, if you look at our diagram, black with white stripe, 1 referring to 1 gauge, which is the thickness of the wire. We can verify that by looking compared to the other wires. The black wire is significantly larger. That is our charge wire. That charge wire feeds through the fuse box through the main fuse. Which, if we go over here and look at our fuse box, which I conveniently don't happen to have the label for because that would make too much sense. It's the big blue one, 100 amp. So this fuse fuses the alternator in case of some catastrophic failure where there's an excessive current load or the alternator just shits out and spits out a bunch of voltage. So we begin our testing by verifying the main fuse. Okay, so come over here, look at the main fuse, it looks good. Okay, so the second thing we do is we take our meter, touch it over here to our charge terminal, and we can see that we have voltage, which means that this wire is indeed connected through the fuse box through this wire right here to the terminal. Okay, so step 2. You can see from our diagram here that we have this other wire, white with black stripe, which is, which one is it? Kind of hard to tell. But that wire runs through the fuse box over here, through this connector, and then it runs through the body harness to the cluster to the charge light indicator. Now mine is burnt out and I don't really feel like pulling the cluster to put a bulb in it, but this light is controlled by this integrated circuit regulator, which is the voltage regulator right here, and that regulator supplies ground to that bulb to turn it on to give you an indication that the alternator output is insufficient. Other things we have here are this white and red wire, which is the one on the top here. This is for the field excite coil. And what that means is without that plugged in, the regulator has no power. All this charging stuff internally, this 3-phase AC stuff, is all bridge rectified and then sent through the fuse box to the battery. This excite wire here has to come externally in order to trick the regulator into putting out voltage. Now we can test that simply. See, if we unhook this terminal and start it, you can see that we're only putting out 11 volts, which is because everything is running off of the battery. So if we come down here, plug this back in, plug it back in, plug it back in. Come on, stand by. Okay, I didn't get that on camera, but heard the engine start loading a bit, and you can see our voltage is creeping back up. That's where it should be. So what that tells us is the regulator, now that it's got the excite current from the fuse box through this splice, now the regulator is on and running. So we got another wire here, which is this little guy, and I can't seem to figure out what that does. There's really not a lot of information on it, and if you unplug it, nothing happens. It's got to be a power or something for the regulator. So what do we know from this now? Okay, we know the alternator is grounded through the case, through the bracket, to the engine. So if our alternator output is low, the first thing you should do is check your terminals. You can see these ones are quite corroded, which I need to clean, but you do disconnect and clean these terminals. Also loosen up any aftermarket connectors you have here and on the ground. Also, you need to verify this ground here on the strut tower area, and also this wire continues down onto the motor. So once you've verified that your ground is good, you come over here to this white and red wire on this connector. So you're looking at the back of the connector. Get a white wire with a red stripe. The big one on the right side, if you're looking at from the connector side, it's right there. So what we do is we jam our meter in there and we test for voltage. So if we see voltage there, that means that we have power going to the excite. And from our other testing from the fuses and voltage at the wire, so we got voltage on that wire, we got voltage on this wire, we know that our wiring is at least good. The alternator should work anytime it's spinning, obviously. So if this power is good and this connection here is good and your ground is good, you can safely assume that the alternator itself is bad, or the regulator or the diode bridge. But either way, that means alternator replacement. So within a couple minutes we can easily test and verify the alternator is bad. In this case it's good, but this is just what we have to do to test it.